Hi, I'm Jamila, just Jamila, and you're here with me again as I introduce to you the gubernatorial team of Tregenza Roach and Novelle E. Francis Jr. They came to me and asked that I interview them so that my audience, you, my beloved audience, can get to know them a little bit better. You would have seen part one of the video with Lieutenant Governor Tregenza Roach, and now I have the pleasure of interviewing my friend, Novelle E. Francis Jr. Open disclosure, y'all know I do the open disclosure. I've known him for a long time. I actually really like him. In my brain, he's to be my brother-in-law. Ask his brother Buddha. But we're here on a serious note. We're going to have this discussion about why he has decided to run as the lieutenant governor to our current lieutenant governor, Tregenza Roach. And we're trying to get to know him a little bit better as you head to the polls this Saturday. So, hi.
Hi, Jamila. It's
How
a
are you?
delight to be here. I'm being interviewed by you. You're considered one of the professionals when it comes to interview around here, so I'm happy to be here as part of that.
I'm flattered. Flattery will get you everywhere.
Absolutely.
But on a serious note, I've known you for a long time, and I've been in this arena for a minute. Why now? Because I know that there have been other people who may have approached you to run with them previously. What made you decide to leave what is considered a sure seat in the legislature to run as the lieutenant governor with Tregenza Roach?
Thank you very much for the question, and it is a fair question. I've been asked by many individuals to consider to run for a lieutenant governor, and I just feel real resolute about this time around. I believe that Lieutenant Governor Roach, Tregenza Roach, brings a level of character, integrity, and trust to the job. And certainly we have been able to have a dialogue over a period of time in regards to running for office. It took almost a year. And we have had that discussion back and forth. And just really in the conversation, we talk about how do we improve the quality of life for the people here in the Virgin Islands. He didn't ask me for loyalty. He really asked about us working collectively to make that happen. I had the opportunity to work with him in the 31st legislature and the 32nd legislature. And really a cool guy. I mean, an individual that I believe is steady. He's very deliberative, and I believe the time is right. I've had the opportunity to serve in government, 25 years with the Virgin Islands Police Department, 12 years at the legislature. My children are grown because this has a lot to do with them. I got permission from my wife, which was very important to me to move forward with this because you know that despite being in public service for all these years, your whole entire life is dug up when you consider running for this position. I always wanted to make sure that I don't put them, I'm the one that's on the ballot, and I really don't put them in a position where they're seems to be challenged, embarrassed by individuals out there. And we know how nasty politics could be, and certainly we have not seen any less during this campaign cycle. But nonetheless, we're very resolute and really prepared. Not to mention that we have done a lot of the heavy lifting to get us to this point. I believe that our stick-to-itiveness, our public service over the years, almost 30 years, over 30 years for me. As a matter of fact, it's 37 years since I took the first oath of office. I took the oath of office 13 times.
Wow.
And in terms of Lieutenant Governor Roach, where he have served in the executive branch, the legislative, as well as the judiciary branch. So I think the time is right. We understand government, we understand governance, and we prepared on day one, to really take on this responsibility and move this territory forward. So I'm very excited about this run. I believe that the people want a team that they could trust, and I believe that this team certainly bring that trust to government.
Well, I like that answer. And that's very interesting that you said he didn't ask you for loyalty. And it's important for a governor and lieutenant governor to be able to work together. History has shown us what happens when they don't. We've had governors that were one term and their lieutenant left to run for another office. We've had people almost challenged their governor from the lieutenant governor seat in a gubernatorial election. And I have seen you leave being the president of the legislature, serving as the vice president, and going back to being the president, all with the same resolute, disposition. how do you think traversing from your role in the legislature where you served in those capacities have, and or do you think that that will help you in being able to be second in command and not be the top of the ticket? Because there have been discussions, I'm sure you've heard, for you to run as the gubernatorial candidate.
Right.
How do you balance not being number one and the decision to run as number two?
Well, I think my discipline has really been consistent. In the police department, I certainly utilize the same constant leadership, servant leadership, where I believe that I'm loyal. I'm loyal to a fault at times, but truly that I come from a position where I'm able to work with people. I'm a a bridge builder. In my estimation, I really could work with individuals. So when I serve as president, I did what I had to do, and I'm always in terms of inclusion. When I served as vice president, I was equally loyal, to the person that was president, and really just ensure that I was able to work along with that individual, which was by the way,
Yeah.
Dr. Gregory, and just really created a level of loyalty that would allow to be able to protect, because the institution is bigger than any one of us. My loyalty is always to the people of the Virgin Islands, to the institution, and hence I'm able to make the adjustment. I don't have to be in charge, but certainly I want to have a seat that is able to make the difference. Likewise, I believe that I have a great deal of respect for Tregenza Roach, and I see that there is opportunity there where he'll respect me because of what I bring to the table. I've run a branch of government twice before. I've run a police department where we handled budget and leaving that position, and I've never been called by the Inspector General's office, the Attorney General's office, or the U.S. Attorney's office to be questioned about finances. So I think I bring a happy balance to it. At times, individuals take the fact that you're very deliberative and you work. I'm the statesman in the room. I was the policeman in the room, but I could go from 0 to 100 real quick, all right? And I try not to do that because I believe that it takes a lot more to be able to be self-disciplined and self-control rather than resorting, to anger. So I definitely rely on that to be able to have a balanced discussion and be able to be supportive of whoever is in charge.
Okay. And you talk about running a branch of government, running a department, and not having to be called in front of an inspector general or any kind of enforcement agency. We've had it is what it is. We've had some people who've had issues with the government, with skirting the law, breaking the law, people who've been convicted of violating the laws. How do you think that your administration, running with Tregenza Roach, you're going to be able to build back that type of trust in our government? Because I think that's so important. I think as a people, we've lost the sense of trust in our leadership and in the choices that we make because some people have had missteps. How do you think that your team, the team that you've created with Tregenza Roach, would be able to help restore the trust in our government?
Well, trust is very important, and as you have alluded to, we have had some corruption issues that plague the government of the Virgin Islands. It didn't just happen in this administration; it happened in previous administrations
it's been
as
happening,
well.
yes.
And whenever you always have bad actors, right? I was part of an anti-corruption task force with the U.S. Attorney's Office and with the federal government. And and in these task force, you certainly have local and federal individuals that create the task force, so that we're able to police it. I believe in the administration of the Francis Roach is that we want to be able to build mechanism by which we're able to address corruption. I'm not going to say that we're going to be able to stop and eliminate corruption. When we see the amount of money that's going through this territory, you're going to always have bad actors. But I think what we want to do is to create that mechanism by which we're able to address it, make sure individuals are then prosecuted via due process, and then they're penalized, and that hopefully will send a message to the other person that may be considering it. So we want to build in terms of strengthening our Attorney General's office, strengthening the white collar crime unit, and making sure that they staff up to be able to address what we're seeing in terms of white collar crime. We want to make sure that our Inspector General's office as well is empowered to be able to address that. I would like to see us create a local grand jury system. We have a federal grand jury system, and I would like to see us do that as well at the local level. The grand jury system allow for you to bring in individual, and have certain questions that you're able to develop the probable cause by which you could do the investigation associated with white collar crime and what's called RICO, racketeering, organizational crime. So I'm hoping that we could certainly staff that up and make that happen. We also want to continue working with our federal partners because they have great resources available to them. They have deep pockets and they have access to resources that could be able to investigate a lot of these matters timely. A lot of the corruption that we're seeing involving financial crimes. So having that federal nexus to these issues, we're able to get a lot more information available to us, be able to complete a lot more audit and forensic auditing that will be required for us to be able to investigate these matters in a timely fashion. So I believe that the Francis Roach administration is one of the very few, because of experience that I've had in that would be able to staff up an anti-corruption task force and see to it that we move into the next level. But the bottom line is that you have to create this mechanism that will work on behalf of the people of the Virgin Islands and be able to send a strong message that this will not be tolerated. In addition to that, we want to do the necessary audits in a timely fashion. I believe that and create the mechanism by which we're able to review these audits, because when you have audits that's being done, 3, 4, 5 years behind, then it's very difficult to be able to track the money. A lot of times you have to follow the money. And that is why it's so concerning for me, because when we look at the amount of big money that's being proposed in these campaign and who's behind the money and who's establishment and all these type of things, you have to be able to follow that money.
Yeah.
Okay, eventually you have to be able to pay the piper.
Yeah.
You have to be able to be pay back that money that's coming in here. They're not doing it for nothing. They certainly want to make some inroads and be able to control the next administration that's coming into office.
My grandmother always said that nothing in life free. There's a cost for
You have to pay.
everything, and you don't envy what other person have because you don't know how tight the shoes is that they're walking in. It might be cute, but it might be hurting the person foot.
Absolutely.
I'm glad that you said all of that, and I wanted to, first and foremost, extend my condolences as I know you have a lifetime badge. I've been in your office, and you have all of your police department stuff around, your hat and all of that. And as a career police officer, I want to extend my condolences on the passing of a police officer in Mr. Charles that, died at the hands of a criminal.
Thank you very much for that. Of course, my blood run blue. Right? I've spent 25 years in the police department. Even prior to that, my entire school to career, I spent it at the Virgin Islands Police Department. In the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. So definitely blue runs through my vein. And Sunday morning was a very, very difficult time for me, and even more so because just about 24 hours before that, we're in his company.
Yeah.
So it is painful, and I too want to extend. We've been talking to the family, so we want to continue to extend our condolences to the family, and also to give kudos to the Virgin Islands Police Department in terms of the timely arrest of these individuals. The Lieutenant Governor continued to be deeply devastated. There's this individual, Eustace Charles, Agent Charles, were more than just a friend or a protector. He's family.
Yeah.
He becomes family over that period of time.
You do.
I serve as a bodyguard for Governor Farley and Derek Hodge back in the days. And, you're committing to put your life on the line for an individual. So
The ultimate sacrifice.
the ultimate sacrifice of
ultimate
your
sacrifice.
life.
The ultimate sacrifice.
You're saying that you're going to jump in front of them and take a bullet on their behalf.
Which is why I could never be in the military or a police officer.
That speaks volume, and certainly, Lieutenant Governor Roach and I could definitely appreciate that. And it's really difficult, and we have had some sleepless nights as a result of that. Just thinking about
And,
what's
and I
happening
can
there.
imagine, but that brings me to what's happening in our community. We, Committee on Homeland Security, of which you're not a member, but you attend all the meetings, and I want to thank you for the constant support that you
Yes.
provide
Yes.
to the freshman senator. The police department said they had 25 murders and one arrest at the time. And I know that you were in a room and you asked some very difficult questions of the Virgin Islands Police Department. But it seems like there's an air, an aura cycle here in the Virgin Islands where it's not a whole bunch of people that's committing these crimes. It's a handful of broken people, because they have to be broken to be able to commit the crimes that they're committing with such callous disregard for anybody else. What do you think the administration, the Roach Francis administration, would be able to do? And what resources would you tap into? We know that we have a deep religious community. We're faith-based here in the Virgin Islands. We have a lot of nonprofit organizations. It seems like there's a new nonprofit that pops up every night, and want to do something for the community. But what would your administration do to be able to assist the Virgin Islands Police Department, not just with solving crimes, but assist the community in changing and correcting the path that we're on, and you know changing the navigation system? 'Cause our GPS off.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts
Well, definitely,
surrounding
this is
that?
multifaceted. Certainly, you want to engage this community because the issue of crime and criminality in our community is not just a police problem. It's really a community's problem, and we have to be able to build the trust back in the Virgin Islands Police Department that people feel, compelled or convinced to be able to support and provide them with the information to solve some of these cases. So when I say it's multifaceted, certainly we see that the manpower at the Virgin Islands Police Department has declined significantly. When we look at the amount of peace officers that's post-certified, the number is almost 531 officers. We know that not even half of that is within the Virgin Islands Police Department. So I believe, and I've advocated, through the governor's office and other means, for us to be able to at least to be able to stabilize what we're seeing here as a rising crime, to have these peace officers then be placed within the Virgin Islands Police Department for a time certain, be it 45 days or 90 days, so that we could stabilize this matter of crime that we're experiencing. They could have directive patrol. They could go out and do all of the traffic stops that are required, and just kind of be in the face. Like you said, there's only a small bandit of individuals that's going out and wreaking havoc on our community. We want to take the fight to them. Take the fight to those criminal elements and make sure that you're in the face. Wake them up in the morning, go to sleep with them in the night, or whatever it takes. Be in their face every time they move. We know that if you're able to initiate traffic stop, that individuals will leave their guns at home, which means that we'll minimize the crime of opportunities that they're experiencing. So that is certainly what we want to see in terms of an aggressive approach to our crime element and address that. We want to build an intelligence unit that will be able to gain and gather all of the intelligence that could be able to tell us, what's happening in our community. When I was at the police department, we had what's called ComStat, where we're able to analyze all of the data to show exactly where crime is occurring and make sure that we have targeted patrol to address those particular issues. We're not seeing that these days. We want to set up roadblocks. We want to be in the face of this community and really build that reservoir that will accept that the police department is doing what they need to do. We want to make sure that when citizens call the police, that they respond in a timely fashion and that take appropriate action, and that the information that they are given is held in the most confidential manner. So we want to create a pipeline of individuals that could go into the police department by building our pre-cadet program within our schools. We want to break the school to prison pipeline, so that we don't continue to allow students that may get into a small infraction in school that gets into the criminal justice system and then they spiral down into criminal element. We want to be able to address that on the onset, have restorative justice within the school environment, and get them on the straight and on the straight path. We want to be able to get our faith community. We know that they have a congregation of, and as well as young people that is walking the right road. Most of the time, we want to get them to be able to come as mentors to some of those individuals that's going on the dark side. We also want to recognize, and this is big for me, those individuals that may have individual trauma that's going on within their life. We have a lot of students around here, young people, that's walking around with trauma to the highest level. They have seen parents, family members have been impacted with crime and violence, all their life, and they carry this burden with them every single day. How do we provide some type of psychological assistance to them in being able to address that? Those are the things that we want to look at from the Roach Francis administration, where we recognize these issues and be able to ensure that we have the appropriate mechanism to address those problems. So it's very multifaceted, but I believe it's within us. Or if we could come together as a community to be able to resolve these situations. We also want to provide opportunities for our young men. We know that a young man with a bright future will really take a dark path. So they want to contribute. They really want to live a decent life, and we want to make sure that there are opportunities available. We saw what happened after the hurricanes when these young men were working.
Yeah.
Our crime almost went to zero.
Yeah. They
Because
didn't
they were
have much
busy,
in
they
the
were earning their
file.
salary,
Yeah.
and then what happened? We had some difficulties in being able to pay them. And they went right back into
Yeah.
that life, So all of those things that will happen, we want to make sure that there's second chance program that's available to them. We want to make sure that when they enter prison, that there's rehabilitation and reentry, so that they can be prepared to undertake a life that they don't come right back into the same environment that got them into the jail in the first place. So it's very multifaceted. We have commissioned psychologists and sociologists to kind of look at the whole issue of criminality. And we know that when our community is engaged with this, that we could definitely see some inroads in correcting it.
So let me ask you, have you and your running mate sat down and had this discussion? Because in my discussion with him, he said he wanted to tap into those things that you have expertise in.
Yes.
And it's clear from your response that you've given this issue a lot of thought. Are those the types of conversations? I know you said it took a year to decide that you guys were doing this. Were those the type of discussions you were having, the things that you want to see and the programs that you want this administration to develop?
Absolutely, and Lieutenant Governor Roach was very adamant that these are areas that I will need you to lead the charge on and have the oversight responsibility for, because this is certainly your expertise, being me, and I would welcome your handling and oversight of these responsibilities, because no one greater to be able to make this happen than you. And those are the things that I could appreciate with Lieutenant Governor Roach. He recognized where his strength is and recognize where my strength is, and that's where we converge those together to be able to serve to the benefit of the people of the Virgin Islands.
All right, I want to thank you for that. And I want to ask you this question because both of you served in the legislature. And as a team, you're going to have to send down legislation and there may be leases, contracts that you want to have vetted. What type of relationship, or what do you think your relationship, the importance of developing a relationship with the members of the legislature? This last, or the current administration, haven't had the most amicable relationship with the institution. It seems to have a disconnect or sometimes a disrespectful tone with the administration. How would your team approach the need for making sure that you get buy-in from the 15 people who are closest to the people that you represent?
Yeah, conversely, I believe that, first of all, that the governor didn't utilize the lieutenant governor enough, being a former senator, to be able to navigate that. That's why it's important that you have individuals that's working in tandem. But, we have had that discussion as well, and we believe that we're the most salient source available to make that happen. Working with our legislative body, I've served the last 6 terms there. He has served 3 terms. So we understand the role that the legislature play, and when the legislature and the executive branch work together, and some of those measures that we see have been put in place and have really benefited this community, is important that you're able to do that. So we intend to have the conversation and meet with the legislature frequently before we have these type of fallouts that may happen in the public view. I think it's so important for us to be able to meet and be able to, and we don't have all the answers, right? We want to be able to because it'll be 2 of us versus 15 individuals that will have a seat at the table that could really navigate whatever the initiative may be, and be able to reach some amicable resolution to it. Ultimately, the governor would then send down that legislation. But I think that having the input of the legislature and get buy-in will be in the best interest of the people of the Virgin Islands. So we intend to capitalize on that, based on our experience, based on us being able to work in the legislature, understand how the legislature functions. I believe that we're definitely poised and positioned to make that happen.
Okay. Is there...
And that's one of the 5 qualities that we bring to governance in recognizing the contribution of the legislative branch, and we intend to tap into that and make it happen.
Because the first branch is my favorite branch today, so I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
So, is there, you're currently serving in the legislature. Is there anything that, as a senator, that you wanted to accomplish? Is there one piece of legislation that you wanted to get enacted that you weren't able to do? Or is there something you're working on to make sure that you get passed before you possibly leave? Well, you don't leave because, either which way, but is there something that you want to get done?
Yeah,
that
there's
you
a
haven't gotten?
number of legislation that I'm working on. In my last days at the legislature, probate being one of those for sure. Is a piece of legislation that we're working on, and as well as a couple of resolutions being able to honor and recognize certain individuals within our community there. But leaving the legislative branch and going into the executive branch as well, is that it really gave me an opportunity to see some of my legislation go into action. For example, the South Shore Enterprise Zone.
I was going to ask about that next.
For example, the behavioral health. I am a strong advocate for behavioral health and mental health in our community. We have done a lot of work in providing the funding and changing legislation to be able to allow for a comprehensive reform of the behavioral health legislation. And this behavioral health issue has been declared a crisis by the current administration as well as the prior administration. And still, I'm not comfortable with the level of action that has been taken to address that particular issue. Every single day, we're seeing fallout in our streets of individuals that unfortunately, because of life circumstances, have gone over to the dark side. And we want to really work to provide some support, some care, some treatment to those. We want to have a facility here in St. Croix that will be able to at least house them and intern them for internally address their issues for at least up to 30 days if need be. But we can't continue to kick this can down the road. We're talking about veterans, we're talking about teachers, nurses, individuals that's really impacted because of life circumstances. We have families that's living in siege in their own home because of these individuals that having the manic episodes and those type of things. So we have parents that's locking in rooms. We have families that's family heirlooms that's being destroyed as a result of these type of situations. So it's something that's a priority for me, and I'd like to move from the legislative state into an implementation and execution. So that is something that I really want to see taking place.
So you answered my question before I asked it because I wanted to ask, you were the proponent, the chief proponent for the South Shore Enterprise Zone,
Yeah.
and the rollout has been a little bit slow.
Yes.
And so I'll just pivot. Instead of asking about legislation you want to implement, because you've already substantially addressed the mental health, behavioral health issue. The South Shore Enterprise Zone, it seems like that rollout has been a little bit slow. Is there discussion between yourself and your running mate about the implementation and the necessity to develop that? And if so, what is your plans for using the enterprise zone to help develop the economy of St. Croix?
Well, I'll tell you that this is not being just discussed by myself and my running mate. This is being discussed by every candidate that's running for governor and lieutenant governor right now. Every one of them. Recognizing the importance of the social enterprise zone and recognizing the benefit of getting this moving. I think everyone has now seen my vision. And really, and I thank them. And I agree that the South Shore Enterprise Zone is an area where we could really maximize the economic engine and diversification of the economic portfolio here on St. Croix. So I believe that what we want to see, and in addition to designating that area as a social enterprise zone, I also gave them $1 million to market it. They have done a feasibility study in terms of the deep water port and being able to establish a shipyard in that area. But more importantly, now, we have had even a summit where we brought in almost close to a dozen individuals to really explore the social enterprise zone and the feasibility of getting that up and running. I think the next level is to really have the infrastructure that this could really be jumped off. I also moved legislation to allow for the solar farms and the WAPA to be able to sell energy within the social enterprise zone, because that was a cost factor, was certainly one of the concerns that have been raised by a lot of the investors that look at the social enterprise zone, and it could be sold under what's required by the Public Service Commission. So they could be a lot more competitive within the social enterprise zone. So there's a lot of movement that has been provided there for the social enterprise zone, and we're hoping that we could definitely see some action there. And I thank all of the candidates that see this as a means of really jumpstarting the St. Croix economy. In addition to that, the ability to be able to establish the move of WAPA over into the social zone as well, it would be extremely beneficial. I'd love to see us be able to get that deep water port back under our inventory. That is ultimately my goal, because there is so much benefit there to that. But the social enterprise zone presents a trifecta, where you have a deep water port, an airport, and industrial park. Right next to that, then you have the University of the Virgin Islands, you have the RT Park, you have the education complex. There's a whole hub that could be built out around that social enterprise zone, pull out of our industrial areas over there as per the comprehensive land and water use plan, and really get this moving. So that is something I'm looking forward to.
And when I ran and the people didn't vote for me in 2012, one of my platform planks, and you and I have talked about this, is that I had an idea for making the South Shore of St. Croix a transshipment hub, and you perfected the idea. And so, that from the time you introduced that piece of legislation, I was like, it's the best legislation ever for St. Croix. And I wish that the rollout was a little bit faster, because it is so important. We just lost the opportunity to have Amazon build a warehouse, and I think we have missed opportunities because we're afraid to have those conversations, and those conversations can only happen when the top leads and has a vision for St. Croix.
I think for the benefit of the public, I just want to talk about some of the businesses that could be established within the social enterprise zone. Of course, we talk about light manufacturing, call centers, warehousing, big box stores. As a matter of fact, we do have two two individuals within the South Shore. Our first one was actually a local person in the mix, caterer, that established within the South Shore Enterprise Zone, and they have been able to maximize their production and be able to export their butter cookies and other
Yes.
things within the enterprise zone. So we do have some residents residing in the South Shore Enterprise Zone, but it's something that's waiting to take off, and I agree that we now have to take this to the next level.
And the deep water port that you're speaking of is the port at the Renaissance
Renaissance Park,
facility,
right.
not the one on the Hovenza side, the one on the Renaissance facility.
And that will be critical. I mean, when we start
Or
talking,
Vialco for those
yeah,
who may not know.
when we start talking about expanding that deep water port, that's where transshipment comes in. That's where we'll be able to bring, the mails into. We already get the mail coming to the airport. We imagine, creating a hub where your postals and everything else will come there and then deployed out into the wider Caribbean. In our conversation with Amazon at the time, we were able to have this discussion about creating a next or same day or next day delivery service by establishing warehouses here, having these items here, and then be able to ship into the Caribbean in a timely fashion.
And we have the landmass on this beautiful island, so I appreciate that. Now let me ask you, because I asked the lieutenant governor, and I'm going to ask you as his running mate, why should the people of St. Croix trust that the Roach Francis team is the best team, especially for us as Crucians who have often felt that when a governor and a lieutenant governor gets elected, that the needs of the people of St. Croix often gets pushed to the side. How can you assure us that our Roach Francis administration will give St. Croix the attention that she needs?
So,
And you say I gave St. Croix a she. Yeah.
yeah, so I want to start from me, of course, being a Crucian
Okay.
and a person that have been serving the people of the Virgins for the last 37 years. And, I truly believe that they know that St. Croix is first. In my mind, we have not had a lieutenant governor on St. Croix for the last 12 years. I think that the importance of being able to have someone here that will be able to advocate for St. Croix, someone that has really dedicated his life to St. Croix and have walked the street. There's no stranger. St. Croix is not an afterthought for me, where some may now view St. Croix as that opportunity because it's an afterthought for them. When they had opportunities to support St. Croix Initiative, they weren't there to support St. Croix Initiative. I truly believe that I'm always advocate. I'm loyal to a fault. I know in instances where I refuse, even in the 33rd legislature, where I even refused to be Senate President when there seemed to have been a concern about St. Croix having both the Senate President and the Finance Chair. Yeah, I walked out. I believe it's so important that St. Croix have a seat at the table, and they could bet on me that I will always ensure that St. Croix gets its fair share. Even when came time for us to divvy up the Epstein fund, I was one of one that was in that room to make sure that St. Croix got their share of it.
I can attest to that. That is
one
that
of
is-
one that was
is
in that
not-
room to
that
make
is-
sure that St. Croix got its
no
share.
lies detected.
So-
And an invitation was sent to all the St. Croix senators, and you were the only St. Croix senator that showed up to every single meeting and advocated for the fair disposition of funds. And I think you were able to get $25 million for the Turo building and $15 million for the
$18 million
18 million for the
for the
behavioral.
behavioral
I said 15. $18 million
$18
for the behavioral health in Anna's Hope.
Correct.
So why I remember those numbers? I mean,
Yeah.
25. Yeah, you were like, okay, this is what we. And you were actually the only St. Croix senator. And open disclosure, because we're on the radio and we
is-
don't want anybody to.
it's the 34th
It was in the 34th legislature. And no, 35th,
35th
35th legislature,
legislature.
and Senator Viale was not elected because I know I'm going to get calls.
Yeah.
He was not in the building, and you represented strongly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think that when you look, and I'm not asking anyone to just listen to my words, is they could check the record. They could go back and look at the record. And again, for 37 years, I have been a constant and consistent measure here. I've met people at their best times, and I've met people at their worst time. And I have always made myself available. I'm the guy that you saw in the post office. in the grocery store, at the gas stations. I have been a constant here in the community, and individual have been extremely approachable. Individuals had walked up to me, and I always avail myself to be able to listen to their concerns. I was responsible for a number of roads repair here on St. Croix as well.
I was about to ask you about that.
Lorraine, Booksburg,
So you need
Contentment,
to come out my
Rattan,
brain.
Princess,
It's funny when you work around somebody,
Baron
you can't,
Spot.
yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think, I'm saying, I think that some of the things I'm going to ask because we've worked together around each other for the last 6 years now.
Yes.
And because I was just about to say, and I just see something else that you've turned over a lot of private road to the government as well.
That's the process by
Yes,
which we have to do the
yes.
petition and
Yeah,
then do the
you've
repairs.
turned over where people have called, developers and residents in an area have called and said, hey, my road needs to fix, and you're like, well, we can't fix it because it's a private road. And I just see one.
You know that beautiful building that you work out of at Golden Rock?
I
That
love
was
that
built
building.
under my watch as well, right? Certainly.
I call that the James McNamara building.
Yeah,
Listen,
along with
yes.
definitely the support of James McNamara as a project director, as well as
Yes.
Pam Richards, who was also the executive director at the time.
Oh, she was? Oh,
Yes,
I didn't
yeah.
I didn't realize
Yes,
that.
she was
Okay.
there. And I was there and knew and watched every stud in the wall, every bolt, every rebar, every concrete that was poured. I am one of those individuals that is trust but verify. So I certainly watched that building come through in real time, and we're proud of that building.
And that building is beautiful and very standardized, state of the art. It's very nice. It's the people's building. It's a very beautiful building.
We don't have to pay no rent. That's the first time that St. Croix actually owned its own. First
Yes.
time its own legislative building.
And the maintenance on that building, you can't put a stud in the wall, a nail in the wall, or James.
Yeah,
will
the current executive director as well as
Yeah,
Mr.
they-
McNamara
yeah,
that still remains there, make sure that it's
Yes,
properly maintained.
it's properly maintained.
Correct.
So we need to give them their props. But I was saying, I just saw you're turning over some more. You have a proposition to turn over road. I think it's Estate Kane. I just read that.
Yes.
It was performed last week, Tuesday.
Yes.
And so the importance of that, I think the little things, you turn over the roads to the government so that people can get their roads repaired, because
I don't
a
think
lot
the
of
community
times,
understand the process by which that is done, where we can't just come, or the government can't just come and pave a road in a private area. It has to be, the petition has to be circulated by the community. It has to go through a legislative process to make sure that a road is then turned over to the government of the Virgin Islands. Public Works come and do an assessment of what it's going to cost to repair it, and then we have to provide the funding to be able to repair
that's
it
the
and get
important
it done.
part,
Yeah.
finding the funding to repair the roads. But
And by the way, we do have under the Garvey Fund, $28 million that's available to do some of the main roads under the federal road system, and those are really just being impacted by the undergrounding that needs to be done for the water line and the sewage line replacement. So we don't want to pave those roads until such time as we're able to get that taken care of.
And I'm glad that you brought that up, because we have seen previous administrations, sewer lines need to go in, electrical lines need to go in, telephone and cable lines need to go in, and you've just paved the road and they dig it back up. Have you, and as a member of the legislature, you've had to find money
Yes.
every time the road needs to be repaved. Have you had discussions with your running mate about the need to have these semi-autonomous agencies all get on the same page and all decide, this is the project
One
we're
dig,
working on,
the one dig.
dig once,
Once.
let's pave it one time?
Yes.
What kind of conversations are you guys having in terms of the regulations of these semi-autonomous agencies and autonomous agencies that you don't have direct oversight over?
Yeah, that's established. Currently within the disaster recovery efforts, is that Public Works is the lead on that to make sure that we're navigating where all of the necessary semi-autonomous agencies are instrumental and at the table when they discuss the undergrounding that needs to be done. So they come in and put all the conduits and everything else. And what we have done additionally is to drop in an additional conduit that would allow for any future wiring that needs to be done, that conduit will already be in place, so that it could be used as an additional to the work that's being done right now. So that is a conversation that's being had, and it's something that we intend to enforce. In addition to that, we want to make sure that under these disaster recovery projects is that we're ensuring that they're properly GIS and mapped, so that in the future you'll be able to establish the information and access the information. We had too much individuals that we had to go back to, the George Knights of the world, and these people that you had to go back to and say, oh, where this pipe is run, and those type of things. So we want to make sure that we're leaving this for the future, where we're actually GISing a lot of this information, and that's where the information that's coming in from the street addressing system and mapping system and the GIS under the Office of the Lieutenant Governor will be beneficial to both utilities as well as emergency responders.
And our hospitals are in a state of crisis. But actually, I don't know about St. Thomas, so let me just speak about the hospital I know, right? I hear St. Thomas in a state of crisis as well. I don't know that I don't know that personally to be a fact. I do know that we do have issues with St. Croix and our hospital and the rebuild. In your discussions with your running mate, what are you talking about in terms of addressing that? Because you live on St. Croix, the people at St. Croix, for all intents and purposes, yes, you vote for the governor and the lieutenant governor, but the people on St. Croix are going to vote for the person from St. Croix. They're going to pick who they like from St. Croix and vote for that person, right? What conversations are you having with the current lieutenant governor about the need to make sure that healthcare and access to healthcare is made available for people on St. Croix? Because if we get sick, that's the first place we have to go, and the only place really that we have to go. So what kind of discussions are you having, and where is that in your priority list?
Healthcare is among our top two priorities.
Okay.
Certainly I believe that being a cancer survivor myself, having a wife that have had a medical emergency, we understand the importance of healthcare here. We have an aging population as well that we require some healthcare issues. We want to look at the systems of the hospital and what's transpiring there. We look at some of the complexities that's involved in our healthcare system right now in terms of the infrastructure. We know that that's soon to be taken care of. Well, they'll be doing the demolition of the old Wang Louis Hospital. In the meantime, we want to alleviate the pressures that we are seeing in our emergency room. I think everybody goes to the emergency room even if they have a flu. We want to be able to establish, public health centers on the outskirts, utilize our acute and urgent cares to be able to support, some of those non-emergencies, so we could relieve what's happening in our emergency room. We want to address the border situation that occupy much needed beds. This is the highest paid hotel room right now.
It is.
We want to allow by staffing up and allowing for assisted living quarters. We want to address the issue and really, even talk to the private sector about how they could support, some of these assisted living quarters that's there and expanding what's already in place. Herbert Gregg, we want to expand that. Telehealth, we want to really capitalize on telehealth. The home health care, we want to be able to address home health because we know a lot of people that prefer to be in their homes. They're not sick enough to want to be in the hospital, so we want to make sure that while they're in the home, that we have nurses and health professionals that could be able to support them in that endeavor. We want to take a look at the amount of uncompensated care that we're experiencing in this community. Somewhere in the neighborhood, and I keep asking the question, of between 60 to 80 million dollars. That's money that we're bleeding out of this territory that could very well benefit us here at home. So we want to look at even a universal health care that involves the private sector. We pay for government insurance, we subsidize government insurance, and we want to similarly do the same for the private sector because I think that will save in the back end. We either going to pay upfront or in the back end. This uncompensated care is really expanding because everyone that goes to the hospital, whether they're insured, underinsured, or don't have no insurance at all, it's a burden on our healthcare system. So we want to be able to recoup some of that from our hospital. So we have much work to be done in that area, and we believe that we could become the medical tourism capital of the Caribbean
Okay.
if we're able to get that going. We have the opportunities too, and the Lieutenant Governor is very vocal about supporting our medical school
Okay.
and getting that going up and running, because it really just kind of completes the whole process of having a medical school, the simulation center, new hospitals, working along with our ancillary acute and urgent care centers. All of this could really talk about creating quality healthcare paradigm within structure within the Virgin Islands and here in St. Croix in particular. So those are something that we continue to talk about. Our platform, speaks to some of the work that we intend to do
Okay.
our healthcare system there.
That sounds good. Um, when elected, because I said if during the previous interview
Yeah.
with the lieutenant governor, and they corrected me, say when elected, you become the commissioner of banking and insurance. Traditionally, the Virgin Islands residents have had a hard time with the amount of banks that are here locally and the services that the banks provide. As a chair of the banking board, what are your thoughts in regards to the services being provided here locally, and what would you do as the commissioner of banking to be able to attract new and innovative banks to our shores?
The first thing that we want to do is to be able to address the banks that's here right now.
Okay.
I believe that we need individuals that could make decisions here in the Virgin Islands versus having to go to Puerto Rico each and every time a decision will have to be made. These banks here certainly house and use the government money to be able to make their own money off of. And we want to really hold them accountable for reinvesting back into this community and offering better products. So we want to make sure that is done here and force their hand in terms of making sure that they live up to the agreement with having the government funds reside within these various banks. Outside of that, we want to be able to, because we're completely accredited. The Lieutenant Governor's Office, Banking and Insurance is completely accredited. We want to be able to make products much more available to our community. Volume and capacity is always a concern for banking, so we want to look at even how can we tie in the BVIs in some of this discussion in terms of increasing our numbers, so it could be a little bit more attractive in being able to attract banks. We also want to take a look at online banking and see how favorable online banking will be to be able to provide products and services to the people of the Virgin Islands. But ultimately, we really want to maximize our current banks and make sure that they're living up to the agreement.
Okay, and I'm glad that you said online banking because, in the research that I've done, online banks have to either have a relationship with a current bank or develop their own licensure process for here. So
Correct.
it can be mutually beneficial to an existing bank, which benefits us. And if they come in on their own, even greater, it also benefits us. So
And they also drive competition, right?
yes.
So
and competition is needed in the market. And you then become the commissioner of insurance.
Yes.
And we live in a hurricane zone. We all know about the dangers of not having enough insurance on a home.
Yeah.
And we also, talk about current vehicular insurance where people, the cap is at, I think, 10,000 or maybe 25,000 now. As the commissioner of insurance, is there any thought that you're giving to how we can help the insurance market in terms of getting more underwriters here in the territory? Because I think all of the car insurance underwritten by is
Ultimately, by Lloyd's of London.
Lloyd's of London.
Yes. So.
Yeah, everybody's underwritten by this. You have the same underwriter, but in terms of getting additional underwriters, and then on the healthcare side, about attracting healthcare insurance providers in the territory that would maybe allow for the government to then shop around and do different types of insurance packages for employees, and allow for the private sector to be able to purchase insurance for their businesses.
Yeah, again, I will capitalize on the benefit of having a partner that have served in the Lieutenant Governor's office for the last 8 years and know the Lieutenant Governor's office, banking and insurance, like the back of his hand. So I intend to tap into that available resources. I know that capacity and volume continue to be a issue as it pertains to insurance as well. So we want to make sure that, and the risk, in fact, that we are in a hurricane alley. A lot of times we have high accident rates here in the Virgin Islands. So there's always this issue of being able to have cost-effective insurance. It's not always that it's prohibitive, but because of the cost of it is extremely expensive. So we want to be able to, by competition, be able to attract additional products and availability of insurance that will be able to drive the cost down somewhat and make sure that they're offering very competitive prices within the insurance spectrum of the banking and insurance. But all in all, when we look at insurance and the fact that we are accredited, I think that will certainly be beneficial to us being able to have a lot more attraction there. And we need to just maximize our insurance board and to make sure that they're getting the best service to the community.
And as the lieutenant governor, you're probably the head of the second largest revenue
generator.
generator in the government in terms of being able to assess property taxes and the collection thereof. What have you given any thought? I know that everything now in the lieutenant governor office is done online.
Yes, yes.
But is there any need, and have you given any thought to how you can address the assessment of new properties, properties that have been renovated, and developing a seamless relationship between the tax assessor's office and the Department of Planning and Natural Resources, who issues permits for building?
Yeah, there's a lot of thought that have gone into that. Of course, we have the issue of the circuit breaker that we have to address. I think what we're seeing is in terms of having the Lieutenant Governor's office staff up with appraisal, which seems to be a difficult lift, and we've been working with the University of the Virgin Islands to be able to get additional people within the appraisal field, but for the tax assessor's office to be able to go out and do revaluation of these properties. We're still way behind when it comes to the assessment. I think that we're the lowest property tax within the nation, and certainly there are some opportunities there. We also have to look at the collection efforts. We have over $120 million or so that's out there. One of the areas that we intend to staff up is an Office of Government Accountability as well as an Office of Collections. I think that it's critical that we're able to just have a central repository for all of the collections that's owed to the government of the Virgin Islands, regardless of which area, and they'd be responsible then for collecting the monies, allowing for payment plan, and just go out and be able to collect on these things. When that happens, then we'll be able to provide better service to our community because people will be paying their bills, and we could be able to offer better services for the hospital, for our roads, for our community on the whole. So that is something that we intend to certainly take a look at.
Okay, and my last question, and I want to thank you. Before I ask my last question, I want to thank you and the lieutenant governor, the current lieutenant governor, for trusting me to conduct this interview. It means a lot. We may not always agree politically, but the fact that you're willing to have me ask you questions that's not scripted, ask you what I want to ask you, means the world to me and my audience, and I hope that they get to know you just a little bit better.
Right.
My final question is, why Roach Francis? What makes the Roach Francis team better than the other two in this race, and why should we vote for you?
Thank you very much for that question. And I'll tell you that, again, the Roach Francis teams bring over 60 years of public service to this community. Again, very steady, consistent, and constant. We have been able to serve this community as public servant. And, we didn't just wake up and decide that we wanted to run for office. We built upon our careers serving this community every single day. for the last 37 years, in my instance, over 30 years for the lieutenant governor in being available to this community. And we take this community very serious. We have this community have trusted us in our various capacity over the years, and they can trust us going into the governor and lieutenant governor's role. St. Croix certainly have a voice and a strong advocate to make sure that we're looking out for St. Croix and have a seat at the table in me. And for that, I believe that I thank the lieutenant governor for allowing me to make sure that that St. Croix have that steady voice moving forward. Don't take my word for it. I want the community to look at our record. Clearly look at our record, our body of work. Don't single out any one particular subject. Look at our body of work over the last 3 decades or so and evaluate. Evaluate and fact find, go back and do your fact check in our work and our contribution here in the Virgin Islands. And I'm sure that you'll find there is no better prepared team to lead these Virgin Islands forward. We understand what it takes for governance. We have done a lot of the heavy lifting. We have gone to Washington. We have worked through and navigated some of the FEMA process. I know the numbers like the back of my hand based on being not just the chair of the Budget Appropriations and Finance, but sitting in that at the legislature, watching the numbers for the last 12 years. We understand what we need to do as a government to move us forward. So I'm asking the community to continue to trust, and thank you for your trust thus far. And rest assured that the team of Roach Francis have the best interests of this community at heart, and we continue to serve with purpose for you and not for the few. So we ask you to consider voting for the Roach Francis team number 1 on the ballot. In early voting, and again, certainly those that have not voted yet on August 1st, please look and consider voting for the Roach Francis team, a team that again serving with purpose. Thank you very much.
I didn't even have to ask you your number. I want to thank you, and I want to thank my audience again for tuning in. I love you guys, and I'm glad that of the 3 teams, 2 of them have entrusted me to interview them and bring them to my listening audience. And I want to publicly thank both teams that trusted me to bring you the information. And I encourage all of you to exercise your right to vote and do so with intent and with deliberate thought going into it. I don't know how to be anybody but just Jamila. I happen to love being just Jamila. Until next time, bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Jamila.
Okay, thank you.